Canto 5, Book 5, The Legend of Artegall. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Brian Barnes. The Faerie Queene by Edmund Spenser, Book 5, The Legend of Artegall, Canto 5. So soon as day forth dawning from the east, night's humid curtain from the heavens withdrew, and early calling forth both man and beast, commanded them their daily works renew, these noble warriors, mindful to pursue the last day's purpose of their vowed fight, themselves thereto prepared in order due, the knight, as best was seeming for a knight, and the Amazon, as best it liked herself to dight. All in a camis light of purple silk, woven upon with silver subtly wrought, and quilted upon satin white as milk, trailed with ribbons diversely distraught, like as the workmen had their courses taught, which was short tucked for light motion up to her ham, but when she list it wrought down to her lowest heel, and thereupon she wore for her defence a mailed habergeon. And on her legs she painted buskins wore, basted with bends of gold on every side, and mails between, and laced close afore. Upon her thigh her scimitar was tied with an embroidered belt of mickle pride, and on her shoulder hung her shield bedeckt upon the boss with stones that shined wide, as the fair moon in her most full aspect, that to the moon it mote be like in each respect. So forth she came out of the city gate, with stately port and proud magnificence, guarded with many damsels that did wait upon her person for her sure defence, playing on shawms and trumpets, that from hence their sound did reach unto the heavens height. So forth into the field she marched thence, where was a rich pavilion ready pight, her to receive, till time they should begin the fight. Then forth came Artegall out of his tent, all armed to point, and first the lists did enter. Soon after eke came she with fell intent, and countenance fierce, as having fully bent her, that battle's utmost trial to advent her. The lists were closed fast, to bar the rout from rudely pressing to the middle centre, which in great heaps them circled all about, waiting how fortune would resolve that dangerous doubt. The trumpet sounded, and the field began. With bitter strokes it both began and ended. She, at the first encounter, on him ran with furious rage, as if she had intended out of his breast the very heart have rended. But he, that had like tempests often tried, from that first flaw himself right well defended, the more she raged, the more he did abide. She hewed, she foined, she lashed, she laid on every side. Yet still her blowes he bore, and her forbore, weening at last to win advantage new. Yet still her cruelty increased more, and though power failed, her courage did accrue, which failing he gan fiercely her pursue, like as a smith that to his cunning feat the stubborn metal seeketh to subdue, soon as he feels it mollified with heat, with his great iron sledge doth strongly on it beat. So did Sir Artegall upon her lay, as if she had an iron anvil been, that flakes of fire, bright as the sunny ray, out of her steely arms were flashing seen, that all on fire ye would her surely weene. But with her shield so well herself she warded from the dread danger of his weapon keen, that all that while her life she safely guarded, but he that help from her against her will discarded. For with his trenchant blade at the next blow half of her shield he shared quite away, that half her side itself did naked show, and thenceforth unto danger opened way. Much was she moved with the mighty sway of that sad stroke, that half enraged she grew, and like a greedy beare unto her pray, with her sharp scimitar at him she flew, that glancing down his thigh, the purple blood forth drew. Thereat she gan to triumph with great boast, and to upbraid that chance which him misfell, as if the prize she gotten had almost, with spiteful speeches fitting with her well, that his great heart gan inwardly to swell with indignation at her vaunting vaine, and at her stroke with puissance fearful fell, yet with her shield she warded it again, that shattered all to pieces round about the plaine. Having her thus disarmed of her shield, upon her helmet he again her stroke, that down she fell upon the grassy field, in senseless swoon, as if her life forsook, and pangs of death her spirit overtook. Whom when he saw before his foot prostrated, he to her leapt with deadly dreadful look, and her sunshiny helmet soon unlaced, thinking at once both head and helmet to have raced. But when as he discovered had her face, he saw his senses strange astonishment, a miracle of natures goodly grace, and her fair visage void of ornament, but bathed in blood and sweat together ment, which in the rudeness of that evill plight bewrayed the signes of feature excellent, like as the moone in foggy winters night doth seem to be herself, though darkened be her light. At sight thereof his cruel-minded heart empierced was with pitiful regard, that his sharp sword he threw from him apart, cursing his hand that had that visage marred. No hand so cruel, nor no heart so hard, but ruth of beauty will it mollify. By this, upstarting from her swoon, she stared a while about her with confused eye, like one that from his dream is waked suddenly. Soon as the knight she there by her did spy, standing with empty hands, all weaponless, with fresh assault upon him she did fly, and gan renew her former cruelness. And though he still retired, yet natheless with huge redoubled strokes she on him layd, and more increased her outrage merciless, the more that he with meek entreaty prayd her wrathful hand from greedy vengeance to have stayd. Like as a puttock having spied in sight a gentle falcon sitting on an hill, whose other wing, now made unmeet for flight, was lately broken by some fortune ill. The foolish kite, led with licentious will, doth beat upon the gentle bird in vaine, with many idle stoopes her troubling still. Even so did Radegund with bootless paine annoy this noble knight, and sorely him constraine. Naught could he do, but shun the dread despite of her fierce wrath, and backward still retire, and with his single shield, well as he might, bear off the burden of her raging ire, and evermore he gently did desire to stay her strokes, and he himself would yield. Yet nod she hark, ne let him once respire, till he to her delivered had his shield, and to her mercy him submitted in plain field. So was he overcome, not overcome, but to her yielded of his own accord. Yet was he justly damned by the doom of his own mouth, that spake so wareless a word, to be her thrall, and service her afford. For though that he first victory obtained, yet after by abandoning his sword, he wilful lost that he before attained. No fairer conquest than that with good will is gained. Though with her sword on him she flatling stroke, in sign of true subjection to her power, and as her vassal him to thraldom took. But Turpine born to more unhappy hour, as he, on whom the luckless stars did lower, she caused to be attached, and forthwith led unto the crook to abide the baleful stower, from which he lately had through rescue fled, where he full shamefully was hanged by the head. But when they thought on Talus hands to lay, he with his iron flaile amongst them thundred, that they were faine to let him fcape away, glad from his company to be so sundred, whofe presence all their troupes so much encumbred, that the heapes of thofe, which he did wound and flay, befides the rest difmayd, might not be numbred. Yet all that while he would not once affay to rescue his own lord, but thought it juft to bay. Then tooke the Amazon this noble knight, left to her will by his own wilfull blame, and caufed him to be disarmed quite of all the ornaments of knightly name, with which whilome he gotten had great fame. Instead whereof she made him to be dight in womens weeds, that is to manhood shame, and put before his lap an apron white, instead of curates and bases fit for fight. So being clad, she brought him from the field, in which he had been trained many a day, into a long large chamber, which was sealed with monuments of many knights decay, by her subdued in victorious fray. Amongst the which she caused his warlike armes be hanged on high, that mote his shame bewray, and broke his sword, for fear of further harmes, with which he wont to stir up batteilous alarmes. There entred in, he round about him faw many brave knights, whose names right well he knew, there bound to obey that Amazons proud law, spinning and carding all in comely rew, that his big heart loathed so uncomely view. But they were forced through penury and pine to do those works to them appointed due, for naught was given them to sup or dine, but what their hands could earn by twisting linen twine. Amongst them all she placed him most low, and in his hand a diftaffe to him gave, that he thereon should spin both flax and tow. A sordid office for a mind so brave. So hard it is to be a woman's slave. Yet he it tooke in his own self's despite, and thereto did himself right well behave, her to obey, sith he his faith had plight, her vassal to become, if she him won in fight. Who had him seen, imagined mote thereby, that whilome hath of Hercules been told, how for Iola's sake he did apply his mighty hands the distaff vile to hold, for his huge club, which had subdued of old so many monsters, which the world annoyed. His lion's skin changed to a pall of gold, in which forgetting warres, he only joyed in combats of sweet love, and with his mistress toyed. Such is the cruelty of womankind, when they have shaken off the shamefast band, with which wise nature did them strongly bind, to obey the hestes of man's well-ruling hand, that then all rule and reason they withstand, to purchafe a licentious liberty. But virtuous women wisely understand, that they were born to base humility, unless the heavens them lift to lawful sovereignty. Thus there long while continued Artegall, serving proud Radegund with true subjection. However it his noble heart did gall, to obey a woman's tyrannous direction, that might have had of life or death election. But having chosen, now he might not change. During which time the warlike Amazon, whose wandering fancy after lust did range, gan cast a secret liking to this captive strange. Which long concealing in her covert breast, she chawed the cud of lovers careful plight, yet could it not so thoroughly digest, being fast fixt in her wounded sprite, but it tormented her both day and night. Yet would she not thereto yield free accord, to serve the lowly vassal of her might, and of her servant make her sovereign lord, so great her pride, that she such baseness much abhorred. So much the greater still her anguish grew, through stubborn handling of her lovesick heart, and still the more she strove it to subdue, the more she still augmented her own smart, and wider made the wound of the hidden dart. At laft, when long she ftruggled had in vaine, She gan to stoupe, and her proud mind convert To meeke obeifance of loves mighty raine, And him entreat for grace, that had procur'd her paine. Unto her felfe in fecret she did call Her neareft handmayd, whom she moft did truft, And to her fayd, Clorinda, whom of all I truft alive, fith I thee foftred firft, now is the time, that I untimely muft thereof make trial in my greateft need. It is so happened, that the heavens unjuft, Spiting my happy freedom, have agreed To thrall my loofer life, or my last bale to breed. With that fhe turned her head, as half abafhed, To hide the blufh, which in her vifage rofe, And through her eyes like fudden lightning flafhed, Decking her cheeke with a vermilion rofe. But foone fhe did her countenance compofe, And to her turning thus began againe: This griefes deepe wound I would to thee difclofe, Thereto compelled through heart murdring paine, But dread of fhame my doubtfull lips doth ftill reftraine. Ah, my deare dread, fayd then the faithfull mayd, Can dread of ought your dreadlefle heart withhold, That may hath with dread of death difmayd, And dare even deaths most dreadfull face behold? Say on, my foveraine Lady, and be bold, Doth not your handmayds life at your foot lie? Therewith much comforted, fhe gan unfold The caufe of her conceived malady, As one that would confeffe, yet faine would it deny. Clarence, fayd fhe, thou feest yon Faerie Knight, Whom not my valour, but his owne brave mind Subjected hath to my unequall might. What right is it, that he should thraldom find, For lending life to me a wretch unkind, That for fuch good him recompence with ill? Therefore I caft, how I may him unbind, And by his freedom get his free good will, Yet fo, as bound to me he may continue ftill. Bound unto me, but not with fuch hard bands Of ftrong compulfion and ftreight violence, As now in miferable ftate he stands, But with fweet love and fure benevolence, Voide of malicious mind or foul offence. To which if thou canst win him any way, Without discovery of my thoughts pretence, Both goodly meed of him it purchafe may, And eke with gratefull fervice me right well appay. Which that thou mayft the better bring to pafle, Lo here this ring, which fhall thy warrant be, And token true to old Eumenius. From time to time, when thou it best fhalt fee, That in and out thou mayft have paffage free. Go now, Clorinda, well thy wits advize, And all thy forces gather unto thee, Armies of lovely lookes and fpeeches wize, With which thou canst even love himfelfe to love entize. The truftie mayd, conceiving her intent, Did with fure promife of her good endeavour Give her great comfort and fome hearts content. So from her parting fhe thenceforth did labour, By all the meanes fhe might, to curry favour With the elfin knight, her ladies best beloved. With daily fhew of courteous kind behaviour, Even at the mark white of his hart fhe roved, And with wide glauncing words one day fhe thus him proved. Unhappy knight, upon whofe hopelefle ftate Fortune envying good hath felly frowned, And cruel heavens have heaped an heavy fate. I rue, that thus thy better dayes are drowned in fad difpaire, And all thy fences fwooned in stupid forrow, Sith thy jufter merit might elfe have with felicity been crowned. Look up at last, and wake thy dulled spirit, To think how this long death thou mighteft disinherit. Much did he marvel at her uncouth fpeach, Whofe hidden drift he could not well perceive, and gan to doubt, lest she him sought to peach of treason, or some guilefull traine did weave, through which she might his wretched life bereave. Both which to barre, he with this answer met her: Faire damzell, that with ruth, as I perceive, of my mishaps, art moved to wish me better, for such your kind regard, I can but rest your debtor. Yet weet ye well, that to a courage great, it is no less beseeming well to beare the storme of fortunes frowne, or heavens threat, than in the sunshine of her countenance cleare, timely to joy, and carry comely cheare. For though this cloud have now me overcaft, yet do I not of better times defpaire. And though, unlike, they should for ever laft, yet in my truths affurance I rest fixed faft. But what so stony mind, she then replide, but if in his owne power occafion lay, would to his hope a window open wide, and to his fortunes help make ready way? Unworthy fure, quoth he, of better day, that will not take the offer of good hope, and eke pursue, if he attain it may. Which fpeeches fhe applying to the scope of her intent, this further purpofe to him fhope. Then why doeft not, thou ill-advifed man, make meanes to win thy liberty forlorne, and try if thou by faire entreaty can move Radegund, who, though she still have worne her dayes in warre, yet, weet thou, was not borne of beares and tygers, nor so falvage minded, as that, albe all love of men she fcorne, she yet forgets, that she of men was kinded, and sooth oft feene, thou proudeft harts bafe love hath blinded. Certes, Clorinda, not of cancred will, said he, nor obstinate disdainfull mind, I have forbore this duty to fulfill. For well I may this weene, by that I find, that fhe a Queene, and come of princely kind, both worthy is for to be fewed unto, chiefly by him, whofe life her law doth bind, and eke of power her owne doome to undo, and alls of princely grace to be inclined thereto. But want of meanes hath been mine onely let, from feeking favour where it doth abound, which if I might by your good office get, I to yourfelfe fhould rest for ever bound, and ready to deferve what grace I found. She feeling him thus bite upon the bait, yet doubting lest his hold was but unsound, and not well fastned, would not strike him straight, but drew him on with hope, fit leifure to await. But foolifh mayd, whiles heedlefle of the hooke, fhe thus oft times was beating off and on through flippry footing, fell into the brooke, and there was caught to her confusion. For, feeking thus to fave the Amazon, fhe wounded was with her deceipts owne dart, and gan thenceforth to cast affection, conceived close in her beguiled hart, to Artegall, through pity of his causeless smart. Yet durft she not disclofe her fancies wound, ne to himfelfe, for doubt of being stained, ne yet to any other wight on ground, for feare her mistress should have knowledge gained, but to herfelfe it secretly retained within the clofet of her covert breast. The more thereby her tender hart was pained, yet to wait fit time she weened best, and fairely did dissemble her sad thoughts unrest. One day her lady, calling her apart, gan to demand of her some tidings good, touching her loves fuccefle, her lingering smart. Therewith she gan at first to change her mood, as one adawed and half confufed stood, but quickly she it overpaft, so soon as she her face had wiped to frefh her blood, though gan she tell her all, that she had done, and all the wayes she sought his love for to have won. But said, that he was obstinate and fterne, fcorning her offers and conditions vaine, ne would be taught with any termes to learne so fond a lesson as to love againe. Die rather would he in penurious paine, and his abridged dayes in dolour waste, then his foes love or liking entertaine. His resolution was both first and last. His body was her thrall, his heart was freely plast. Which when the cruel Amazon perceived, she gan to storme and rage and rend her gall, for very fell despite which she conceived, to be so scorned of a baseborne thrall, whose life did lie in her least eyelids fall. Of which she vowed with many a cursed threat, that she therefore would him ere long forestall. Natheless, when calmed was her furious heat, she changed that threatfull mood, and mildly gan entreat. What now is left, Clorinda? What remaines, that we may compass this our enterprize? Great shame to lose so long employed paines, and greater shame to abide so great misprize, with which he dares our offers thus despize. Yet that his guilt the greater may appeare, and more my gracious mercy by this wise, I will a while with his first folly beare, till thou have tried again, and tempted him more neare. Say and do all that may thereto prevaile, leave naught unpromised, that may him persuade. Life, freedom, grace, and gifts of great availe, with which the gods themselves are milder made. Thereto add art, even womens witty trade, the art of mighty words that men can charme, with which in case thou canst him not invade, let him feel hardness of thy heavy arme, who will not stoupe with good, shall be made stoupe with harme. Some of his diet do from him withdraw, for I find him to be too proudly fed. Give him more labour, and with straighter law, that he with work may be forwearied. Let him lodge hard, and lie in straw and bed, that may pull down the courage of his pride. And lay upon him, for his greater dread, cold iron chaines, with which let him be tied, and let whatever he desires be him denied. When thou hast all this done, then bring me news of his demeane. Thenceforth not like a lover, but like a rebel stout I will him use. For I resolve this siege not to give over, till I the conquest of my will recover. So she departed, full of griefe and stain, which inly did to great impatience move her. But the false maiden shortly turned again unto the prison, where her heart did thrall remaine. There all her subtle nets she did unfold, and all the engines of her wit display, in which she meant him waryless to enfold, and of his innocence to make her prey. So cunningly she wrought her crafts assay, that both her lady and herself withal, and eke the knight at once she did betray. But most the knight, whom she with guilefull call did cast for to allure, into her trap to fall. As a bad nurse, which feigning to receive in her own mouth the food meant for her child, withholds it to herself, and doth deceive the infant, so for want of nurture spoiled. Even so Clorinda her own dame beguiled, and turned the trust which was in her affide, to feeding of her private fire, which boiled her inward breast, and in her entrails fried, the more that she it sought to cover and to hide. For coming to this knight, she purpose feigned, how earnest suit she erst for him had made, unto her queene his freedom to have gained. But by no meanes could her thereto persuade, but that instead thereof she sternly bade his misery to be augmented more, and many iron bands on him to laid. All which natheless she for his love forbore, so praying him t'accept her service evermore. And more than that, she promised that she would, in case she might find favour in his eye, D'use how to enlarge him out of hold. The Faerie, glad to gaine his liberty, Can yield great thanks for such her courtefie, And with faire words, fit for the time and place, To feed the humour of her malady, Promised, if she would free him from that cafe, He would by all good meanes he might deferve fuch grace. So daily he faire femblant did her shew, Yet never ment he in his noble mind To his own abfent love to be untrew, Ne ever did deceitfull Clarin find In her falfe hart his bondage to unbind, But rather how she mote him fafter tie. Therefore unto her miftrefle moft unkind She daily told her love he did defie, And him she told her dame his freedom did deny. Yet thus much friendfhip she to him did fhow, That his fcarfe diet somewhat was amended, And his worke leffned, that his love mote grow. Yet to her dame him ftill she difcommended, That she with him mote be the more offended. Thus he long while in thraldom there remained, Of both beloved well, but little friended, Until his own true love his freedom gained, Which in another Canto will be beft contained. End of Book 5, The Legend of Artegall.